Hi everyone, welcome to or back to my channel. Today I'm gonna make a video about how I make my thumbnails. Not really sure if a lot of people are gonna be like,
why?
But I have actually gotten a few comments about my thumbnails and how I make them, so I just thought it would be interesting to maybe show you how I make my thumbnails. Anyways, let's just get right into it. I am just gonna say I feel like it's not that interesting and there's not that many steps, but anyways, let's just go and I will show you how I make my thumbnails. So the first thing I do is obviously to take a photo. So I kind of just find an area that, like maybe by this tree, I don't know, it kind of just depends on where I'm at in the game. So like I don't usually travel to a specific place to get a photo. Also, this isn't really flat ground, so I feel like I need to find another area, like maybe over towards this tree might be better, just so that my horse isn't on an awkward angle or anything. And then once I get into a spot, I think for this one I'm going to get off of my horse. I like to kind of mix it up a little bit. This is actually kind of a weird part because I feel like positioning my character is always a little bit awkward to do, but I just play around with it a little bit until I get something that I like. So then what I do is I go to the field of view and I usually put it like all the way in, and then with my mouse I zoom out as far as I can, and then I just move it over to where I want, so whatever side I want my character to be on for the picture. I'm gonna move it out just a little bit and then zoom in. I don't know if that really makes sense, but like I feel like once you do it, it'll make more sense. And then I just position it to how I want, and then I will sometimes adjust the time of day just so that I get the lighting to look how I want it to. I feel like a lot of times the lighting I want it to be the brightest on my character, so I feel like that is good and I like the positioning. So then I just take the picture. Okay, so the first thing I do is I go to Canva, which I just have the free version. So if you go to the home page, you just go to the photo editor and then upload your photo that you just took on the game. And then once I have it uploaded, and then I go to the background remover option, and then it's going to get rid of everything except the main portion, which is the horse and the character. Sometimes it's a little bit off based on the coloring of like your horse or whatever, so then I just go in with the brush and I remove anything that stayed. So for this one, it was a little bit of the rock in the background. And then it doesn't really have to be perfect, just like kind of enough, because once I go into my main editor, I do an outline of my horse, so some of this will be covered with that anyways. And then once I have that the way that I want, I would just save this to my desktop. And then for my main editor, I use Photoscape X. So I go into the editor page right here at the top, and then you just drag in the photo that you want to edit, so the original photo, and then I crop it, and then I go down to size, and usually it's 1280 by 720 for YouTube thumbnails, so that's what I originally put in, and then you can see you can move it around to where you want. And then it's already at that size, but I can drag it to be a little bit bigger and it should be fine for YouTube. It just kind of depends on like what you want visible in your thumbnail. Once I have that, I will go to insert and go to photos, and then I just pick out the picture that I just downloaded. And then once I have that, it shows here the outline option, so I click on that, and then I think I have the thickness at like 2 or 3 usually for my thumbnails, and then I just resize it so that it matches the original photo, and then I can just cover that one. And then I just feel like it gives it a little bit of extra pop. This is actually something I haven't always done, but the last like month or so I've been trying to make my thumbnails look a little bit better, so this is what I've been doing. And then once I have it all lined up, I also go down and put drop shadow options so that it gives it a little bit of depth and it pops out a little bit from the original photo. And then these are my settings if you wanted to look at them. Basically, I just blur it a little bit so that it's not overly strong in the background. Once I do that, I usually move on to my text, and I use the show card Gothic, but then you just make up whatever you want making thumbnails. And then I go for the outline into color, you go to gradient, and then you can actually pick from this like eyedropper the exact colors that you want for your gradient. So I usually use the same color that are in my outfits, so this one is red, and then I duplicate it, and then I'll write whatever I want for the next line of text. So for this one I'm going to put thumbnails, and then you can just position and resize it to however you like it. And I'll probably make this one a little bit bigger and put it around the middle area. And then these also do have the drop shadow. It's not as obvious on the text, but it does make it look a little bit better in my opinion. The next thing I do is I go back to insert, and sometimes I will do another like little text in the corner. I don't think I will for this one, but for sometimes in my thumbnails you might see that. Then go into images, and I have some Star Stable cutouts for their logo that I like to put in it. So I have the white outline and then one for the back that I fill in for full color. So then I just usually put this above the text, and for color I use fill and then turn off the outline for this one, and then I usually do a gradient again for the background. So for this one I actually go in and I can easily pick the same colors by using the eyedropper again and going to my text and using that outline color. And then once I have that, I would just grab the outline and then size it the same and cover it. So that is how I make that. I think I will add at the end how to actually get the white cutout outline for the Star Stable logo, so do stay for that if you want to see that. Another thing that I've been doing recently is I add a line and I go to the second option down here and then make it so that I can bend multiple parts of it. This is a little bit annoying sometimes, just the way that it's configured. I don't know why they have it like this. Basically, you draw the line and then it has like 4 different points on it, and then you can drag them to where you want. For the most part, it is a little bit finicky, so I have to play around with it a lot, but this is something that I've been doing just recently in my last few thumbnails. I do actually want to go ahead and adjust some of my older thumbnails too, just to make it look better, but for the most part I kind of just have to play around with it to get it to where I want. I kind of just add it wherever there's free space. And then I do also make sure that the opacity is down just a little bit so that it doesn't take away from the main parts of the thumbnail. So for this one, I think I might also add another line around the bottom corner over here. It is just kind of annoying, like the way that they have it, although I could just be not doing it correctly, and that's why it's so annoying to have to play around with, but the curves in it just annoy me so much. They just don't usually go the way that I want them to, and it takes me forever to figure it out. Okay, so I think for that, it's probably the best that I'll do, and then I just click on all of the lines and then send them to the back so that they go behind my character and the text and everything, so it's not blocking any of that. And then obviously once I export the photo, everything on the outside like around here will be all gone because it's not in the actual photo. And then I go to lights and I go to lens flares, and I usually choose the second option, and then I just put it wherever I think the sun would be coming through in the photo, and then it just brightens it up a little bit. And the last thing that I usually do is play around a little bit with the coloring and the lighting just so that it pops a little bit extra. So this is just me kind of playing around with it, trying to figure out how I want the lighting to look in this photo. For the most part, I usually adjust the contrast and sometimes the brightness, and then if I want to, I go in and darken or lighten the highlights. So these are the settings I ended up using. It's kind of just personal preference, however you want the lighting and the background to look in your photo. Other than that, that's pretty much all I do for my thumbnails. And then once I'm done and happy with how it looks, I just go to more and then save to my computer. Pretty much how I make my thumbnails. It's nothing too special, but I have been trying to upgrade them recently. Really quickly, this is how I make the cutout. So you go to Photoscape X and the cutout option on the top, and then you can literally just import your Star Stable logo and click out all of the pink options, and it'll show up like this. And then you just copy and paste it to your photo. Anyways, that is going to be all for this video. I hope that you guys are interested in seeing this. Like I said, I've gotten a few comments about wondering how I make my thumbnails and like appreciating my thumbnails, which thank you so much for that. Anyways, I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!